So, I'm sure we all know the typical college student stereotype. Stays up late, always stressed, always eating instant ramen, freshman 15, etc., etc. So, in an effort to avoid this, I decided that for the month of August, I would try to get my life together by attempting to establish a morning and night routine that would allow me to stay healthy even once the busyness of university hits. I guess the title is kind of clickbait since my original intention wasn't to quote unquote become that girl. I have actually been planning on doing this whole routine implementation thing since before I discovered the trend, but I think since I am still becoming my version of quote unquote that girl, the title still applies. So, on the topic of the that girl trend, I'll speak a bit more on my thoughts and what I think about the trend later on, probably at the end of the video. But for now, I'll just say that my interpretation of that girl is someone who maintains a healthy and productive lifestyle by kind of having consistent habits that motivate them to become the best version of themselves. So, here are the habits I'm going to be trying to implement. In the morning, we have making my bed, skincare, and stretching. In the evening, we have working out, doing skincare, as well as completing a Duolingo lesson. So for my week 1 check-in, it started off pretty well, but then I kind of had my period, so that kind of ruined everything because I guess it's kind of TMI, but I felt pretty icky and then I couldn't really work out and I had really bad cramps, so we were kind of off to a rough start. In terms of my routines, I definitely found it easier to maintain my morning routine rather than my night routine, aside from the workout part, surprisingly. But yeah, I wasn't really able to implement Duolingo habits that I wanted to, so that's definitely something I want to focus on for week 2 or this week. The skincare habit for me has also been kind of hard, just because I'm not really used to it, which sounds kind of bad. But yeah, especially at night, I don't really know when to do my skincare, because I also have to put my contacts in, and then put in my retainers or whatever, so it's kind of hard, but so far I've been able to keep it up. I think I'll do it. I think as I do it more, it'll gradually become more integrated into my nighttime bathroom routine, so we'll see. But yeah, overall, I'd say week 1 is off to, week 1 was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad anyway, and, I think I can give myself a pass considering, it was that time of the month. So hopefully week 2 will be a lot better. Already straight, so don't blow this, baby. It should be simple. So my skincare habit definitely didn't go too well in week 2 either, unfortunately, especially at night. However, I found that when I work out, I almost always remember to do my skincare since I sweat a lot. So I think that if I keep my workout habit consistent, which is a lot easier for me, then I should be able to get my nighttime skincare routine more consistent as well. As for my morning skincare routine, I'm going to try and make sure that before I do my stretches or before I eat breakfast, I ask myself if I've done my skincare yet, just to remind myself to do it. Aside from that, my morning routine has been going pretty well. As for my night routine, I skipped working out once on Thursday because the video on the workout calendar I was using was a morning stretches video and it was really late, so I just let myself take a rest day. In terms of Duolingo, I didn't really do it at the beginning of the week, but once I started, I did it pretty consistently. The streak function definitely really helped encourage me to keep going, but yeah. Why can't you step up for me? Hey, why don't you? So at the beginning of week 3/end of week 2, I created this graphic that you guys will see later on in the video in order to show my habit progress. I originally intended it just as something to improve this video, but I found that having a habit tracker where I check off the habits I've done has really helped me to stay consistent. It kind of feels like a to-do list of things that I have to check off, which for me is definitely really helpful because 1, it makes the habit into a priority, 2, I feel more motivated to do the habit so I can check it off, and 3, it kind of reminds me of what I have to do in case I forget. Some more good news, my skincare habit is also finally starting to improve. I pretty much did my morning routine every day except once, but my night one was still a bit lacking. However, I did do it more often than in weeks 1 and 2, so there was still improvement. For week 4, I've decided to keep my toner/moisturizer for my night routine at my desk instead of in my bathroom. Usually after I work out, I only use cleanser because I prefer to do the majority of my skincare after I shower. But I usually go to my desk after finishing my whole bathroom routine, so if I have my toner and moisturizer there, then I'll see it and it'll remind me to finish my routine, hopefully. Aside from that, the rest of my habits are going pretty well, so hopefully we'll be able to keep that momentum into the last week.
Don't need it. I should run, yes. Every time I give an inch, you won't commit. Give me some conversation, baby. Pick up the phone.
In general, week 4 was a bit better than week 3 in terms of how often I stuck to each habit. This week I was a bit under the weather, so I ended up skipping some of my habits, but for the most part I pushed through. I think for me this is really important because, these habits are meant to keep me healthy, so I need to, at least for now while I'm still establishing them, do my best to stick with them.
Me in the middle. Don't wanna make
In the past, whenever I tried to implement new habits, it was always during the school year, and so I would end up getting sidetracked and end up staying late to do my work and then end up skipping my habits since I had to get enough sleep. Doing this during the summer has really allowed me to focus on implementing these habits and gradually adjusting my schedule accordingly so that I have time to do everything. I initially had a few more habits that I wanted to try and implement, like reading and meditating, but after watching Rebecca J's How to Create a Morning Routine You'll Actually Stick To video, highly recommend you watch that by the way, I decided to cut those out and focus on implementing a quote-unquote mid-energy routine, which is one of the ideas she mentioned. I think I might try adding the other two habits later on and introduce a high-energy routine into my life, but only after I've established the current one. Overall, I'm quite happy that I did this challenge, and I really think starting early will help me maintain these habits once school starts. So if you're looking to implement some habits, I would definitely recommend trying something similar, but not as an excuse to procrastinate. So, I'm definitely aware that while some people, like myself, find these TikToks, like the That Girl TikToks, really motivating and nice to watch, there are definitely a lot of downsides to this trend. Mainly the idea that you have to look the same way as these girls on TikTok in order to become quote-unquote that girl, which can definitely be pretty classist. But I've linked a couple videos below in the description box that I watched and thought were pretty helpful and educational regarding this topic, and who have definitely worded my thoughts a lot better. So in my opinion, while it's definitely important to acknowledge the potentially harmful effects of a trend, it's also important to recognize that a lot of them can apply to literally any trend ever. For example, one of the main criticisms of the That Girl trend that I've seen is that it makes people feel like they have to be aesthetic, quote unquote, or do things in an aesthetically pleasing manner in order to be that girl or even to be healthy. And you definitely don't need to be aesthetic or whatever in order to be healthy. But because the That Girl trend only shows aesthetic videos, it's easy to kind of fall into that trap. But I think what we have to recognize is that the reason that we only see aesthetic That Girl videos is because people like to see aesthetic things. When it comes to trends, you're always going to see the aesthetic version. You're not going to see the real, raw, or non-aesthetic version of things because people just don't really flock to that kind of content. And since it's kind of impossible to stop these trends from happening, I think, in my opinion, it's honestly a lot more productive if we change our mindsets towards social media instead. I think people have to kind of realize that what you see on the internet is never the full picture, and kind of, this may sound kind of blunt, but like, stop taking social media so seriously. Just because someone posts a 5 a.m. morning routine doesn't mean you have to wake up at 5 a.m. too, and it also doesn't mean that they're telling you or forcing you to do the same, unless they explicitly do so, which is kind of whack. But so like, I've seen comments on these types of videos that are like, this is so unrealistic, you're promoting unhealthy lifestyle or body standards. And sometimes these comments are true, definitely, but a lot of the time they're not. And I feel like when you have these kinds of comments, it's kind of criticizing. I feel like you're criticizing the wrong people. Now, I'm not trying to victim blame people because I know it's definitely really easy to get swept up in these kinds of trends, especially when you're seeing them all the time. I'm kind of just saying that while we definitely should address the negative sides of these kinds of trends, we also shouldn't bash them completely, or especially the people doing them, because like, different people interpret trends differently, and we should respect that as long as the trends themselves are not inherently toxic. In my opinion, the point of the That Girl trend isn't that you have to drink green juice and work out in aesthetic clothes every morning. It's to motivate you to become a better version of yourself by setting lifestyle habits that will help you get there. If the trend doesn't do that for you, then don't participate in it. You can even block or mute the hashtags or accounts that do it if you need to. Don't be afraid to curate your social media feed so that it brings you joy or satisfaction rather than making you feel bad about yourself.